Hi everyone, this is Kyne and I'm back with another Halloween tutorial. Yesterday I posted the makeup tutorial for him, the cross-dressing devil from the Powerpuff Girls. It's a look that I've wanted to do forever, but the costume is what's been stopping me, but I finally figured out really easy ways to make this thing for pretty cheap. This is actually going to be a 3-part tutorial for the bodysuit, claws, and finally the pink ruffle tutu collar. First, let's do the bodysuit. I've already made the bodysuit tutorial on my channel, so for more detail on this, you can check that out in the description. Basically, I'm gonna trace the top of a dress pattern, and for the bottom, I'm just taking like some underwear to make that bodysuit shape, pinning it together so that the fabric doesn't move around, and then I'm cutting it out and stitching around the perimeter, leaving gaps, of course, for the head, arms, and legs. The fabric is folded right sides together, by the way, just so I can make a front and a back. You're gonna wanna cut out from the front panel a higher leg hole and a deeper neckline so you can step into it easier. And then you're gonna fold all the raw edges inwards about 1 centimeter or 2 and then stitch all along that hole to hem the edges. It's actually really easy once you get the hang of it. I'm kind of rushing through this since I already have a video on my channel for a bodysuit just like this and I don't want to be repetitive. And anyway, if you're watching this video, I'm assuming you're here because you want to get to the more complex parts. So let's move on to the claws, which for me was the most challenging part. I'm using that same spandex fabric that I used on the bodysuit and folding it over so I can make 2 sides of the claws, and I'm basically cutting out like a claw-shaped mitten that's gonna fit over my hands. Again, I'm pinning this together so I can cut it out without worrying about the fabric sliding around underneath me. And then I'm going to use this to make an exact replica for my other hand by using the first one as a guideline and tracing around that. Next, you're going to want to stitch all the way around this, except of course you're leaving about 10-15 centimeters for your wrist to fit in. Cut out all of the excess seams, especially at the pointy tips, so that when you pull it inside out, you can pull the tips out and it'll be sharp again. Now you should have 2 identical claws that just look totally deflated. The secret to giving them this 3D shape when it's just 2 pieces of fabric sewn together is with some stuffing. I got this stuff at Walmart near the craft section and I'm stuffing both claws. This stuffing is so fluffy, it compresses really small, while the spandex fabric stretches really big, so you can fit a lot more in there than you might think. So fit as much as possible in there so the claws can be big and firm, just like how I like my burgers. Now, since we don't want to stick our hands in just stuffing and we don't want all of this to fall out when we take the gloves off, we need to have some sort of lining. So I'm doing the exact same thing all over again, tracing my hands, cutting it out, pinning and stitching it together, except these are going to be more smaller and fitted to my hands. So these are going to go inside the claws. And then you're going to sew them together where the wrists are. That way, all of the stuffing is kind of in between the smaller glove and the bigger claw-shaped glove. And by the way, just in case you're wondering, there's no need to designate a left hand and a right hand. Ain't nobody got time for that. As a final touch, I wanted to make a kind of ring around the wrist so that part just looks a little cleaner. So for this, I just took whatever fabric I had left over. The length is going to be a little bit longer than the circumference around your wrists, and then the width, I'd say like 5 or 6 centimeters, or 2 to 3 inches for those of you who live in the Stone Age. You're going to fold this in half and sew along where the 2 long edges meet so we can create kind of a long tube. I'm sewing as close as possible to the edge because this can't be too thin or it won't work. And then I also sewed shut one of the ends. This way we can stick in the stuffing through one end. Flip it inside out by sticking your finger in and pulling out the other end, and then you're just going to start stuffing it. Since the opening of this is so small, it can kind of take a while, but the goal here is to kind of create a hot dog shape. So you're going to sew it shut when you're done and then sew it into a ring and attach it to the bottom of the glove. And to attach these, I just used glue. Here you can see I used a hot glue gun, but off camera I realized that wasn't really strong enough, so I had to use some E6000, which is just a really strong heavy duty glue. And then this is the finished result. I think they look amazing. They were a little hard to get into because the inner lining that I made kept getting flipped inside out, but I didn't really mind taking an extra couple of seconds to get these on, and they're super light and durable versus other techniques that I've seen around. The final part of a costume now is going to be that pink ruffle collar and tutu. I picked up a roll of this pink tulle online. I actually used 2 or 3 rolls of this, I think. This one didn't come in a big bolt like you might find, but I was actually pleased with how much more convenient this was since it was kind of the perfect size. To create the ruffles, you want to take strips of this that are about 1/2 meter in size, and you're folding it accordion style or like fan style over under so it goes into zigzag, and then just stitch down one end. You can use a needle by hand like this, but it's so much easier with a machine. Take the end that's sewn together and then you're just gonna sew that to a strip of elastic. You can actually just use any strip like a twill tape or a ribbon. After doing this over and over, my elastic lost its stretch anyway. But the idea here is you wanna make dozens and dozens of these little ruffle fans, and you're basically building towards a long boa of ruffles that looks something like this, and then you can just tie it back. Make 2 of these for your neck and for your waist. Obviously, you're cutting up 2 different strips for each of these measurements. And the thing with ruffles is that more is more. It looks better when it's more full. This tutu/collar ruffle thing is actually what I was wearing on my head at DragCon. I just tied it up into a ball and attached it to my wig with some zip ties. These are super versatile. There's tons of ways to make ruffles like this, but when I got this roll of tulle and saw how small it was, I kind of just made do with what I had. If you're working with huge sheets of tulle, you can fold them or cut them into thinner strips and then just do what I did. But I think making each of those small little fan pieces at a time really made sure nothing was falling apart or coming undone, which tulle is so fluffy, it has a tendency to do that, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. This is the finished look. I decided to just tie that string of ruffles in the back. If you have lots of ruffles, it covers up the knot anyway. And this way you can reuse the ruffles like I did, or reuse the bodysuit in some other looks versus if you sew them together. I added a corseted belt that I bought online, and you can't see here, but I'm also wearing some thigh-high boots. Check out the makeup tutorial if you haven't already to see how I did the face and how I painted my body red. I'll link that video in the description. Thanks so much for all of your support. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!